So today I'll be working on the Wave Manager. So for the Wave Manager, I was going to do it in a similar way as the the tower upgrade system works. So it's not going to be the quickest way to create and set up, but it's going to provide the most amount of control over the system itself. So firstly, let's go into our, where are we? Scripts, Game Manager, and well, actually, yeah, then let's go into scriptable objects and create a new, let's call it a single wave. And that's going to be a scriptable object. Like so. I'll create an ASM new for this. And doesn't matter. So the way we currently do it, this is we have enemies and waves in a list. And what that does is it spawns every single enemy in that specific wave. We will keep this concept, but instead we will change it to a list of waves that we can run through. So this will be changed to a single wave. And this is not going to be called enemies and waves, but available waves, like so. And now we'll get several errors, so let's clear them out. This we no longer need, because we don't need the amount of enemies either. We will still keep the spawn delay and such, but all of the code that actually instantiates our enemy, well, is not going to be gone, but it'll be slightly changed. Where are we? What was enemies in wave? Oh, actually, we do want to keep, or not, let's just leave it as that. And what other, so this will go, and let's leave this and fix the other stuff first. So what's going to happen is a single wave will contain a list of enemies. So it'll be a public game object, and that's going to be enemies to spawn, and that's going to be an array. Like so. And with this, we'll be able to drag in every single enemy that we want into our wave. And so that means that if we go now to the wave manager, all we have to do is change this to, and of course we have our wave number. So what we'll do is we'll do available waves at dot length. Oh, dot count. So that'll give us an entire amount of our waves that we will loop through. No, that's incorrect. We'll do available waves at wave number -1, because our wave number will be a full number, but but the array starts at 0. So instead of wave number 0, we will need index. Instead of 1, we need index of 0, and then we do enemies to spawn dot length. and that will look for as many enemies as we have in our array in a single wave. And then what we will instantiate is the game object in I. So what's going to happen here is we'll just do the following at I, like so, and this will give us the enemy in that index that we want. That means that we can have multiple enemies, not just one type of enemies, which also includes a boss at the end. And then we'll keep, of course, all of this the same. Now, enemies amount is no longer a number. So again, we just copy through our dot length. We might have to do -1. I'm not exactly sure here. And then, of course, what else do we have? Enemies in wave. So that created all of them and disabled them. But now, yeah, let's create the enemies in wave so we control them during that one specific wave. So let's just create a game object, and that's going to be enemies in wave, like so. We'll add them here, clear up before it starts, and that keeps everything as it was before. So now we can loop through everything, enable all of the enemies, wait for the time, and that will count our wave. Now let's give this a try, see if it works. It should work without problem. So let's go into scriptable objects and create a few sets of waves. Oh, we'll go to wave 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's set with 4 waves for now. Yeah. And go into, let's lock this so it doesn't disappear. Go into our enemies, it's prefabs, where are we? And let's drag it in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, and then check out a different wave. Where are we? Lock it. Go into our enemies, prefab, drag it in a few times. Let's make it a few more times. Like so. And let's press, oh, actually, now we have to drag in our newly created waves into our manager. So let's go into the game scene, click on the game manager, find the wave manager class, and drag in the scriptable objects from the waves. So we only have 2 of them set. Wait a minute. Available waves. So 1 and 2, like so. And let's press play and see how it's going to work. So I press play and this spawns 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I believe. There we go. Let's actually try killing them at the end. Yeah, not gonna happen. Oh, we actually killed one of them. So we managed to do that, and now let's press start wave again. And now it should play the second. No, well, it's not going to play the second wave, is it? Because we haven't added that feature in. Okay, but now that we have this, we can add a wave to our current list of waves. So our system does work. Let's just change something. So for now, let's remove this serializable field and remove this serializable field. We don't need to look at these anymore. So what do we want to do? Check if the list is empty. So what we'll do is we'll check if our available objects are no longer visible to start a new wave, or if the last one becomes empty. So actually, let's add a serializable so we can see what's happening exactly to this list here that manages all of our enemies in the wave. And we did want to make the bottom not available when we can't click on it. So now we can start the wave, but when we click on it, it should immediately become unavailable to be clicked. So let's get a reference for this specific button. So let's get a private button, and that's going to be actually image, and that's the availability button. Header wave button system. So we will have our availability button, and we'll have a boolean which will check if we can click on it or not. So private bool can trigger next wave, like so. And of course, we want to have two sets of sprites, which will check whenever our image is available wave as well as unavailable wave, like so. Now let's add everything to our UI. So now if we click on our wave manager, let's go into our resources UI and then drag unavailable. Oh, actually, we will have to make these. Oh, it is a 2D UI. Oh, that should be a sprite. So change these two to a sprite. So unavailable bottom, available bottom. And finally the image itself, which is right this button here. There we go. We have now all the connections that we need. And now start wave has to be slightly changed. So when we first load in, our can trigger is going to be equal to true, because we can trigger the next wave automatically. However, oh, we actually have already isWave started. So we don't need can trigger the next wave, I believe. So isWave started is going to be equal to false on play. And then if we try to click, it will check if it's false. If it's false, it lets us play. But once we already play, it changes it to true. This changes it back to false once the last enemy is spawned. That means that every enemy is already out and we can trigger the next wave, which is okay, because we should be able to trigger more than one wave at a time. I don't see a problem with that. So what we'll do to the button is when we trigger the wave, we will also change the button. So availability button dot sprite is going to be equal to unavailable wave, like so. And at the end, we change it to available. But this also means that we can spawn away. No, because we already have all of our enemies spawned, which is fine. That kind of means that this is it is Oh no, because this only works for enabling the enemies anyway. So yeah, so we will be unable to spawn a wave in a wave, but we will not be able to go too far. Every time we press this button, we need to add to our wave though. So we will actually start at wave number 0, but as soon as we click this, we'll add a wave. So wave number plus plus, like so. So we click the button, it adds to our wave, so it's now the first wave. Everything spawns, we click again, it adds the second wave. What we'll also have to do is I'll add a little automatic counter that checks whenever the wave should spawn automatically. So what's going to actually happen is private void, no, private float the time to next wave. And I'll just say it's 10 seconds. So player has limited time to start next wave. We will have a timer which will keep counting down every single time player doesn't move within the next 10 seconds. And that will be done. So if our wave is started is equal to false, we will start a no. We will need to make sure that every enemy is dead on the scene. Let's think about how to do it. Nah, let's not do the auto spawning, or maybe that's going to be a later feature. I don't see the point for it for now. Okay, so with this, we do have our wave numbers that should work, probably as intended. Did we assign everything? I think we did. Okay, let's give this a try. So let's place some towers and press play. And so now one thing that doesn't happen is the wave doesn't update the text. So text is not being updated, which means it's something we should add. So update wave text only gets called at the start, which actually should happen every time we press the button. And on start, in fact, we should just set this wave number text dot game object dot set active false. We don't need to see it. However, we will set it to true when we do actually call it. So updates the number of the current wave, like so. Now, one thing that actually slightly bothers me here is how hard to see the text is. So I'll add a panel. Right here. And just drag in the button. So this panel is going to be our wave system. And we want to drive the current wave into the wave system. Let's make this Harrier bold, slightly bigger. Change the color to white as well, and then the background of this is going to be like so. Maybe this, keep the text here in black instead. Yep, let's keep it like this. I'm not really liking the uncentered button. So let's center this guy and center this guy as well. Slightly smaller. There we go, like so. I'll do the exact same thing to money and health, and I'll put them in the exact same position. So I'll create a little tab here, maybe even smaller. This is going to be the player information. And here is where we want to put the health as well as money. Let's move them both so they're inside. I'm just going to keep it simple. Put the money at the bottom. Center it within the box and do the exact same thing for health. Maybe not like this. Again, center everything, center at the button, remove the alpha, change the color. There we go. Now it's slightly more visible. Now, I actually wanted to make a skybox for the game. So if we look at the game right now, the colors that we see are green. So I'll just try drawing up a skybox very quickly, and I'll show how a skybox is done. So let's make our skybox a 1080 by 960. 1080 by 1020. Okay, whatever. So this is our skybox here. I'm gonna draw a sky, a grassy area. Oh, this is not a straight line. Okay. Give me a very nice straight line. Come on. Where is it? It's probably not connected at the start. Yeah. And then check out the end. No, the end's fine. For this we have a very nice sky. No. Where is it? Show me the beginning. Yep. Beautiful. Maybe some brown at the bottom. There we go. Gonna add some clouds here and here. Okay, and now let's color them in. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, there's a few issues with these guys. Okay, now let's actually edit the color slightly. Where are we? No, no. And with this, we'll have our little skybox. I have no idea how it's going to look like, but that's, yeah, I don't really, it doesn't matter. Complete concentration. Okay, so now let's save this as, and let's call it skybox. Close this. Go into our images, drag in our skybox. Now, this is going to be the launch and menu. Okay, now to attach the skybox, we go into Windows, and we look for the lightning, which is in rendering, the lightning settings, and it's as simple as I'll just attach this into our skybox. So, of course, we need to make it into a material. So let's go into the skybox again. We will create a new material and call it skybox. And this, I'm just gonna drag and drop. Well, set it to a skybox. Where would the skybox option be? Oh, wait, I saw it. There we go. Skybox, and we have different types. So I'm gonna show each of these how it works with what we actually have with our little image that we have available. And what are we? Skybox procedural. So procedural doesn't let us drag in our image. It's based on the default one that Unity gives. However, the other ones I believe can give us something. So this will need a cube map HDR. So that's not something we can do. So that one's going to go away as well. Let's try that one. Okay, and give them a go. See what they look like. So let's press play. We can't actually see it very well. The camera really needs a skybox. It looks a bit funny because you can see like that bit of a tree from underneath. If we change it, no, anyway, there you go, like so. Let's try dragging in the other one, and so rotation will rotate elements around. And if we look around, it kind of looks like this, which is pretty weird. But yeah, that's just how I've drawn it. And let's try that one then to see what that one's going to look like. So our very first skybox. So this skybox is like drawing up a cube, I believe. So if I drag in every single one of them here, there we go. We are completing a picture basically, as you see, which is fine. Apart from and if we don't do the top ones. So if we press play here, there we go. So we see the sides. But yeah, we have a slight issue with the bottom bit, which can be easily fixed. We can just create a the floor texture, which we can actually do. Why not? We can actually even make some kind of paths as we have in the game. Like so. And then of course go to the bottom. Oh, I was not doing all of the image, was I? Okay. Like so. Like so. Whoa, 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 go back. Okay, now let's give this a try. Nope. Okay, that one's nice. This one is not. How about now? Still, nope. Something doesn't connect here. That bit here. There we go. And now we have our little bottom of the skybox bottom. And now that we have our final piece of skybox, we can drag it in here. I'm gonna duplicate this. Wait. I'm gonna drag that at the bottom, which is the top, isn't it? Yeah. We don't need the white at all, but we do need this one. There we go. And now we have this little thing, which looks pretty funny if I say so myself. Oh, yeah, and we're just gonna go with it. It's good enough for what we want at the end of the day. So there we go. That's how you can create a skybox. It's pretty simple. It looks all right. It actually looks like the trees are standing up, even though they're not, which is pretty cool. With this, we can remove that one because we will not be using this. Let's just call this image size. Image bottom, and then that's our actual skybox. Okay, with this done and the wave manager also complete, we can now move on to the next part. We'll actually go now into the editor, and we'll also add the skybox to the editor because the editor will be visible by the player in the later part. So we wanted to have our custom-made skybox. Now, when we generate level, we'll just get a little map like so. Now, what I want to do now is I want to start slowly working on a system that will change. Actually, we've never tried the wave system, so let's see if waves actually work properly. If we can add a number to our wave, that'll be fine. So at the start, there is no number to the wave, which is as it should be. We press play, it doesn't let us press the button. It's not interactable anymore. I see the bullets are colliding with nothing, so that's something that I'll add to our list of bugs. Where are we? But now, there we go. So the wave finished, and I press next wave. This should have more than 5 enemies. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There we go. So the wave system works. Let's just make a quick note. Add display a selected enemy by the tower when the tower select add. add new, oh, fix the cannon tower exploding in midair. Might be colliding with the ghosts. There we go. So that's done. Now, I actually forgot that we had an issue with the debuffs. So I actually thought of a quick solution for the debuff problem. So if we go into scripts, we should. So the way we apply buffs right now is by. Where are we? By doing deal buff, and we pass in the following. So if we go to enemy health, we have the following here. And let's open enemy movement as well. We have these following functions that take buffs and they deal something to them. So what I actually want to do is I want to make a new class in the, where are we? And that's going to be called a applying debuff. Now, applying debuff is not going to inherit from mono behavior. And applying debuff will have a type of a debuff. So let's make a public enum debuff type. So currently we have two sets of debuffs. We have freeze and we have fire. And then public debuff type of debuff. Now the debuffs will have duration, so we'll have a debuff duration, and that is, and we can also have our own debuff damage. So public float debuff damage, like so. And now what happens is we can actually have a debuff for every single specified thing that is not applicable to anything in general. So if we go into a wave, I mean not wave, freeze tower. Let's get rid of the yellow warnings for now. Don't need that, don't need that. So what we'll have to do here is on enable, well, on start. So when we create the tower, what we'll do is we'll have a private applying debuff, right? And what we'll do here is we'll do debuff is equal to new applying debuff. So now we've created a new instance of a debuff, like the same way you would do in a standard C# without using mono behavior. And what we do here is we simply can set all of our values. So rather than, what do we have here? So we can do something as simple as debuff damage is equal to damage, debuff duration. You can set it to something like 2, and then debuff what's the final one? Type of debuff is, and then that's going to be equal to freeze, like so. And now we have our own debuff So when we're going to pass anything through, we're just going to pass through a debuff to the enemy that the enemy will take. And enemies will have a debuff manager that will manage everything, which we can do in the health section, and then have every other class add to it. So now, rather than doing damage times time dot delta time, we do debuff dot debuff damage. Actually, no, because the actual slow doesn't do any debuff damage. It's the actual damage itself. But this section will now change appropriately, and then we also need that for our fire burn. But rather than the burn tower, the bullet. So there we go. So whenever it's a debuff type or not, it doesn't matter anymore, because what we will do instead is we will simply change some of the code here and actually deal debuff that the object has. So let's first do first make it so that our enemy can store the debuffs. So if we go into enemy health, we will have a list of debuffs. So here we'll do, so we can see private list debuff, applying debuff. So that's going to be applied debuffs is equal to a new list of debuffs. And now we can store all of our debuffs through the debuff call. So this section is what attaches a debuff to our object, but we no longer need this. We can just replace this with a applying debuff, debuff being applied, and effect damage is going to be changed to debuff dot damage. Debuff being applied dot debuff duration, and actually we don't even need any of these. This can be completely changed. So what we'll simply just do is go into our applied debuffs dot add, and we add in this debuff right here. So let's get rid of all of this code for now. And what's going to happen here is, this is the debuff counter, which is, I believe, a invoking function. So rather than doing all of that in here, we will alter this slightly, and we will do if our list of debuffs, so applied debuffs dot count is higher than 0, then we know that we have a debuff going around. And actually, let's do this every second. So every second we will check for a debuff, and every second we will do something based on that. So every time this is run, we will do loop through all of our debuffs. So for our applied debuffs dot count, and then apply debuffs I, and then we'll just do damage. Where are we? So we'll do take damage, and we will run apply debuffs I dot damage, debuff damage, like so. We will, and then we will remove from the duration. So apply debuffs I dot duration minus equals 1, And then if our applied debuffs I dot debuff duration is smaller than or equal to 0, then we simply remove it from the list. So our applied debuffs dot remove at I, like so, and that will remove our debuff completely from the list. Now, with this, we no longer need the is debuffed at all. We don't need the buff damage either, so both of these can go away. Same, we will actually keep the max debuff though, because we don't want our debuffs to be too long. So that's something that we will add later. Now, this can go away. We will no longer need this set of code. And then we will update our UI. Although update UI should happen anyway after we deal damage. Yes, it does. There we go. Now, one thing that we might do is we might check the list if we already have this specific type of a debuff in, and not add another set of that debuff to the game. So what we'll do is, if applied debuffs.contains debuff being applied, if it doesn't, then we can only add it then. But if it does, we'll just ignore this entirely. And that should, in theory, work. So let's fix all of the remaining errors now. Okay, so this is the enemy health problem. Let's do that later. So there we go. Here we are. So now bullets and the debuff type. So the debuff type for the bullet will go away entirely. And instead what I'll do is I will modify this class through polymorphism. So is debuff type can completely disappear. And what we really need to have is if you go into scripts, towers, and bullets, we need a new bullet script, and it's called the burn bullet. Now, the burn bullet will inherit from basic bullet, and what we do need to change here is I believe this function only handle collision. So public override, and then that's going to be handle collision. So we still want to do the base collision, but we also want to do if other.tag is equal to enemy. Where are we? Let's change the language back to English. Is an yeah, like so in here. Then we want to do a debuff. So let's grab the component and do health of enemy deal debuff. And the debuff that we'll apply for this specific one is going to be the burn debuff. So what we want to do here is create a new instance of a debuff. So applying debuff, new debuff is equal to a new applying debuff, and this is where we'll set it up. So for that, we will actually just add some variables here, and we'll do private void burn, private float burn damage. It'll also have a duration, burn duration. So burn damage, burn duration, and what else do we need? What does applying debuff take? And the type. So the type will attach here. So new debuff dot type of debuff is equal to fire. A new debuff dot damage is equal to burn damage. New debuff dot burn duration. Duration is equal to burn duration. I'll actually make these hidden for now because we know we want it to be 5, and this will be something like 5 for now as well. And we'll just pass in our new debuff through. And that way now our burning bullet will probably be attached to the new debuff system. So now let's get rid of the remaining problems. So is debuff no longer exists, which is fine because we no longer check for that. But what we'll check instead for is if we have a very specific debuff instead. So what we want to do is we want to make this accessible. So if and then dot contain, and what we actually want, so what we want it to contain is a debuff with a specific type. Or no, yeah. So that's what we have to do here. So checks if we do not have a debuff that can freeze, and then of course here we'll be doing the reverse of that. So what would be the best way to check a list for a specific value? So one way we can do this is just do a bool has freeze like we had previously. We're going to set it to false by default, and then we'll do if has freeze is equal to false. And then we run this set of code, and then else if is true, then we just run the code like we did before. Of course, right now this is never going to trigger because we didn't set it up yet, but what we can do now is go into our health.apply debuffs.count, and what we can do is check if health.apply debuffs I dot type of debuff is equal to freeze, then we can set has freeze to true, and that will trigger our freezing for the enemy. Now, since all of that code is going to be run in the exact same frame, it's not going to jitter between the two values. Any other errors that we have from the change of the system? Yes. So now we no longer have to call a slow movement at all. That's unnecessary. But I'm going to copy this for these values. So instead of calling this in our, where are we? Freezing tower. Don't give me the new error. We'll just call this instead. So first, let's just do enemy health, and we're gonna make it equal to target component enemy health. We're gonna deal, and we're gonna wait. Let's just paste in that little line of code. We'll change this to health, so we don't have to call it twice. Like so. I have 5 minutes left. Great. And then we'll be dealing the debuff here. Of course, that means that we need to have a debuff, which we do have. So what we need to have is a 0. Those are the values. So I believe the first one was damage. So the debuff damage is going to be set to 0. That's the slow factor. There you go. And we will pass through the debuff that we create at the very start. And with this, we have converted to... Oh my god, I just removed that, didn't I? Health. Where is it? There we go. And with this, we have now changed to a new system that uses... that better manages the debuffs. I think the only thing we have to do is remove the debuffs. Oh yeah, we just need to remove them properly from the list. So how much time do I have? 4 minutes. Okay, let's have a look at the code. And we'll be testing this tomorrow, as I don't have the time to do it today. Where is it? So it's this. So it removes that. Now, currently, the biggest problem that this will give us is the fact that it will loop through something that's empty, because we are removing it here, but we are not resetting the list. There is a way to clear out empty spaces in Unity, and that is using in what's it called, the system.linkQ. Using, is it system.linkQ? Yeah. And so once we've run through the list, we need to do, I believe that's going to be apply debuffs is equal to apply debuffs dot where, what do we have here? Can I just call it as debuff? Or so I know I need that. It's not no, right? Well, so I am so bad at doing these. Yeah, and then I think to list at the end. Okay, so what would be the item? What would be the... Hello. Okay. Anyway, I think I'll finish this tomorrow because my time's up.